Hi, and welcome back to the PodKaz. My name is Todd Milewski. I'm here with Nicole Haase. We're from USCHO.com, here to talk about NCAA women's hockey and a little bit of international hockey because Nicole is still in Nova Scotia, correct? I feel like I was going to say that wrong, where the tournament is this year, but the U18 Women's World Championship in Nova Scotia. Nicole's still there. The tournament's moving into the quarterfinals as we're recording this on Wednesday night. That'll be starting Thursday morning. We'll talk about that a little bit more as the show goes along. We wanted to get into right away what's been happening with the NCAA program here over the last few weeks, and really Princeton has shot to the top of ECAC hockey on an 11-game winning streak. They're up to number 7 in the NPI. This is everything's coming up Tigers right now, which is pretty cool. Izzy Wonder scoring 5 goals in 2 games. Last week, wins at Union and RPI. This is a lot more than I think a lot of people expected from Princeton, even with Izzy Wonder.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they had some graduations. They had Sarah Paul transfer out. It was a little bit of a slow start. They started with losing 3 of their first 4, and now they've only lost 1 more since then. So, yeah, it was a little bit of a slow start, but goodness have they built speed, and it's just been really impressive. I mean, Izzy Wonder really came on in the second half last year as well. She ended up being a PodKaz top 10, I believe.
Yep.
And it feels like maybe it just that whole Ivy League starting late, getting things moving, it just took them a little bit to find their stride.
And I think this is a season where maybe there's some spots up for grabs toward the top of ECAC. So seeing that opportunity and taking it through the middle of the season here, obviously there's a long way to go, but Princeton's really, I think, kind of taken advantage of an opening in that we've seen that there isn't necessarily a dominant team, or hasn't been, and they've kind of filled that role in the last couple of months.
And we assume that will only sort of open up more in the second half as teams are missing players towards the Olympics, right? So, and we talked about this at the beginning, there will be opportunities. We, talked about it maybe more Olympics related, but generally we felt like nothing was written in stone this year. And it feels like Princeton is one of those teams that really just sort of saw the opportunity and went for it.
I would, yeah. So I'm interested to see how these next couple of weeks go, because you start to get into that range of winning. You get to close to a dozen games, and it feels like everything's going. When the bump hits, and maybe it's not a loss, but maybe it's a 2-goal deficit or something like that, how are you going to respond? What's the reaction going to be? Is it, we're in trouble, or is it, look, we're fine, we've done this before? Those are the kind of things I think, if we see Princeton doing, getting through those situations well, then I think we know a little bit of, okay, that maybe is a team that's grown some maturity, and it's really has a chance to be a big factor toward the end of the season.
Yeah, and put a pin in those thoughts, because we'll come back to what do you do when you haven't faced adversity when we talk about the U18s. But yeah, I agree. It's a bit of a signposter, however you want to say it. Like, you do, I the prestige of going undefeated for a long time is great, but I do think you don't learn as much about yourself as a team. You obviously are getting everybody's best, and that helps, but I do think that you need to go through some of that stuff and learn how you react in those situations, and also learn to trust yourself and trust your instincts, and that you're sort of well-trained and well practiced enough that you don't lose those things if you're not using them. Like, you have the instincts, you know what to do, you know how to react in that situation. And particularly when we're talking, younger players, collegiate age players who are in some of these situations, early on in their careers, I think it's really important to go through that, bounce back, and learn to trust yourself. And so, yeah, I think there's massive things that can be learned through a stretch like this. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah. We will return to ECAC hockey in a minute, but I want to get to the first round of the Beanpot that happened on Tuesday at Walter Brown Arena in Boston. A couple weeks ago, BU, Boston University, and Harvard played for a championship, and that was all the way over in Belfast, Northern Ireland. Well, they're going to play for one a lot closer to home next week Tuesday at TD Garden in Boston because they both won semifinals. Harvard won 2-1 over Boston College. Kaylee McDonald with the go-ahead goal in the second period, and Ainsley Tuffy stays on a pretty good heater here, making 40 saves for the Crimson to get through the semis. And then BU upsets Northeastern 2-1 in overtime. Maeve Carey with a power play goal in overtime to win that one. Mary Peterson, 35 saves. And so it's BU and Harvard again for a championship. I don't know that we necessarily would have predicted that in Belfast or in the Beanpot.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, the whole thing, again, yay chaos, and that's not all hockey's, but hockey's reigns with the chaos. But yeah, maybe that was we should have taken that as the sort of what they foretold what we were going to see. I'm sure they're much happier they don't have to have flown overseas to have done this. Not that it wasn't a fun trip, but I think they'll be much happier playing at TD Garden. And yeah, I think it'd be interesting. I think, I was just looking at stats and it says Ainsley Tuffy's only played 8 games, but the way that she has played, man, I feel like she's going to be in some end of the season conversations, and we're going to get into that, how many games versus opponents, like when someone's played a whole season or not. But yeah, she has just been standing on her head, outstanding for Harvard. But I also, just want to shout out, like, they're not a team I thought was going to score a bunch either, and they're not winning the games just because of her. So yeah, would not have predicted it. Think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's cool. I don't think it's great for anybody when the same people win over and over again. And like we see that in the WCHA, I think at some point we need to see a switch up there too, right? For people to not be sort of sick of it. But it's good to see different teams getting this opportunity. And I'm glad that I think it's very hard for us. We talked about this in the past, very hard for us in the Midwest to wrap our head around the import of the Beanpot, but I'm glad that it's teams that, on paper aren't the ones that people thought were going to raise it. One of them's going to get the chance this year, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. We've gone this far into the show this week without mentioning what may be the play of the season. And I apologize for that because, Abbey Murphy is I talked about heaters. Man, all season long has been a heater for Abbey, up to 50 points now, but her assist on Bella Fanale's first of 2 goals in a 4-3 win against Minnesota State on Saturday. If you haven't seen it, go find it. If you haven't, it's all over social media. It's been on TV. Yes. It's a juggling act, really. The puck, she lifts the puck up and then swats it down between the defender's legs on a rush. Not like she's standing still. She's moving. She's on the rush up the left side. Somebody
said it was a lacrosse move. I'm not familiar, but I guess I can see it. But yes,
it's
stupid good. It's not a better word.
I'm just gonna say it's better in hockey because it's a little trickier probably in hockey. But yeah, and then slides it over for Bella to finish. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And if Bella doesn't finish that one, and we miss out on that highlight, so good for her for giving us the highlight.
She did get it on a platter. Abby did all of that,
and it was a pretty empty net.
The perfect passover, just unreal.
Yes, but that was the finish of a series that the Gophers got some revenge against Minnesota State, who swept them earlier in the season. 11-3 on Friday in Mankato, the Gophers won, and then 4-3 back home in Minneapolis on Saturday. But at that play is we're going to talk about that.
Dumped that, like, that game is still in question. So like, to me, that adds to nobody is surprised that Abbey has either the skill nor the audacity, but also Abby's got a lot of hockey IQ. She's very smart. Like, to do that, you have to know in that situation, like when your team is still fighting for a win and it would be a very bad loss to lose to them again, like, you have to know you're going to pull that off. And she does. Like, to have the wherewithal to do it on its own. It's like when we've talked about Nela Lupushinova from Slovakia and some of the stuff she's done, like, to know that you can do that in a game and actually have the chutzpah to do it is one thing. It's a whole nother thing to actually pull it off, and then a third to have done it in this situation where, like, it would have been massive if she was pulling stuff like that, screwed it up, and her team lost. Like, you don't come back from that.
Well, true.
Like, it adds a whole different level. So yeah, I just this is the sort of stuff that makes Abbey a player that everybody loves and everybody loves to hate. This is the stuff where I'm like, when you can do that, please stop with the other silly stuff and just be the spectacular player that you are. But yeah, like audacity is the best word I have. Like the audacity to just be like, yep, no big deal.
I mean, there's no way that we don't see that on a PodKaz top 10, video or whatever we get to the Saturday showing finalists, whatever she is by that point.
And when she gets, but
the number one
during
highlight.
the Olympics, when she gets selected to the P-Dub, like that's following her.
Oh, right. Absolutely. And good for her. I want to say this, Abby, good for you for doing that on a night when there are more cameras in the building, because that was on BTN.
Yes, this was televised. Way to go. On Big Ten Network, not just on BTN Plus. So it was a televised.
So there's extra cameras. Yeah, there's an ISO shot of it. It was great, perfect. Absolutely had to have those extra cameras in there to capture that a few different ways.
Like if this happened in another rink, we'd have one very grainy, distant view of it, and so like Ritter alone, we would have had better. But the fact that it was the BTN broadcast one, like. Listen, I'm not saying Abby knew that, but I just think like, gosh, we're so lucky, because imagine that happened and we didn't even get like the camera view to get to see it. The fact that we have it from like 7 different angles, just A+ all around. Abby can rub everybody's nerves the wrong way, but I just think you cannot deny what a special player she is. Spectacular. Right. And like the conversation about this went huge. Like what this did for women's college hockey this week, just A+ massive.
Yes. Let's build on that more and more. I mean, not saying you're going to get plays like that every week, but there's usually something every week that you're like, huh, that was pretty cool. And it doesn't always reach the masses. Yeah. And that, we'll try and help amplify a lot of those plays when we see them. But this one didn't need our help to get amplified. It was that good on its own. Want to get to a couple more results before we take a quick break. Penn State and Mercyhurst played, two top teams in Atlantic Hockey America. Penn State, obviously, with a huge lead in the league, so I don't think there's a lot of question there of who's finishing first. But Mercyhurst came back after a 3-0 Penn State win on Friday last week to get a 4-3 overtime win over the Nittany Lions on Saturday, coming back from a goal down 3 times, in fact. Julia Perhus, hope that's right, something like that, with a 6-on-4 goal with minute 7 left to tie it, and then Peyton Evans scores in the last minute of overtime to give the Lakers that win. Didn't hurt Penn State in the NPI; they're still 4th, but it's when you see
lost in a while, like a conference loss.
I know that, right? Well, I mean, it is an overtime loss, so it's not a full loss, but yes. That's that to me is I don't know if it was an off day for Penn State. I don't know if it was a really good day for Mercyhurst, combination of the both, or just the kind of one of the results that you get, when you play enough games against each other, there's going to be a lot of familiarity. You're going to know where you need to push another team. And I mean, you get to that point sometimes.
And there's no team that wants to beat Penn State more at that point than Mercyhurst. They've taken control of the league, but Mercyhurst has beaten them on occasion in recent years, and so like they know what they're capable of. And the coming back from down is the part that made it so good. I think just Mercyhurst showing like they were not going to lose that game. Every time Penn State took a lead, they fought back. So I wished I could have seen more of it, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. I texted Todd after, like, go Mercyhurst, just because it's fun to see these when it's a foregone conclusion who's going to win. The conference. It feels like it's fun to see these types of games, and that is a big boost for Mercyhurst.
Yes, that I said didn't hurt Penn State, but there are some results that did hurt teams last weekend. Clarkson's down to number 13 in the NPI now after a 5-5 tie with Cornell on Friday, and then a 5-2 loss to Colgate on Saturday. This is a team that we've kind of been on the lookout for all season. It feels like it's like there's been ups, there's been downs. It's kind of trended a little bit the wrong way recently. Now they're in a spot where they're gonna have to do some digging to get into a an at-large position for the NCAA tournament if that's where they want to get.
Yeah, that 5-5 tie was, those are two teams that are usually very defensive. So
Yeah.
Clarkson Cornell 5-5 tie was a fascinating result. Yeah, I mean, ECAC is going to be hard, and you can't drop points you need to have. And yeah, I don't know. You combine the fact that the ECAC was going to be like this anyway with Princeton going on their heater, and it's like, yeah, those are suddenly, and because all of them have dropped in the rankings, suddenly the NPI hits are just that much harder. But yeah, the bottom 7 or so of the poll right now is fascinating, and definitely feels like there's just a lot of movement, and B, a lot of opportunity. I feel like we're going to end up with some very surprising final at-large bid just based on how volatile that bottom bit has been.
Yeah, seems like it. In the WCHA, Ohio State got a sweep at St. Cloud State, 4-0 Friday and 5-1 on Saturday. And then in Duluth, Minnesota Duluth got a 1-1 tie with Wisconsin on Friday and then won the shootout. Ev Gascon made 38 saves and then stopped all 3 Wisconsin tries in the shootout in that 1-1 draw. And then Wisconsin came back with a 5-1 win on Saturday. Layla Edwards, goal and 2 assists. And Lacey Eden, 3 assists. We were talking a little bit before we started recording that, which Duluth team are we going to see day to day? And I don't know that we have an answer to that. It's what we saw a little bit at the tournament in Belfast was surprising at points, and then they're pretty good. And when they came back in the third period in that first game against Harvard, correct? If I'm remembering that right. But then we see them play some really good stretches against Wisconsin, and they only get 2 points out of 6 for the weekend, which, okay, it does something,
team,
but absolutely. But you felt like there was more available to them in that series.
Yeah, and I guess my thought is like, why is it only against Wisconsin or in the third period of a game that you should have been dominating from the beginning based on, rankings and your output? Like, why? What do they need to be doing to showing up for those full 60 minutes? Because I think even in the tie against Wisconsin, like you said, I think that probably should have been their game to win. And only getting the tie and the shootout out of that is like probably a bit of a disappointing result, having watched some of that game for them. And so, yeah, it's, I mean, that's mostly mentality, right? Like, that's not about skill. I mean, obviously, I think F. Gascon playing the way that she does plays a huge part in being able to keep teams, like, Wisconsin out of the net. But UMD can score more than that too. Like, so I don't know. I said to you, I was like, is there anything to say other than like WTF? Like, which team are you? I don't know that I have like a lot further analysis other than like, I wish they or us could figure it out, because I'm very confused by UMD at this point.
Add it to the list of teams that are confusing for me this season. Honestly, I feel like there's been a lot on that list.
Yes, because we could say conversely too, like Wisconsin, you probably should have, if you could go out and win 5-1 in the second game, what were you doing in that first game where you were like on the verge of losing it? So I think you could make that argument in the opposite direction as well. Wisconsin seems to only show up fully, like 2/3 to 3/4 of the time. And I think they've gotten some of their wins based on being a very talented team as opposed to playing a good game. So that's a team itself that I can have that conversation about.
Sometimes, absolutely. NEWHA results in the last few weeks have made for an interesting situation, top of the standings there. It was not that long ago that St. Anselm had a pretty comfortable lead.
You're like, oh, this is probably
not so much anymore.
Yeah,
not so much. Now it's only 1 point over Franklin Pierce after last weekend. Franklin Pierce beat Sacred Heart 3-2 in overtime with a Kaylee Murphy goal, and then 3-1. Meanwhile, St. Anselm lost to Stonehill 4-1 and then 4-3 in overtime. So all of a sudden, Franklin Pierce 8-0-1 in their last 9, and St. Anselm 0-4-1 in their last 5. And game on.
I mean, here for it. I hate that, a few
Yeah.
weeks ago we were ready to write it off, like bad on us. But yeah, but I like Franklin Pierce to me is. I just ever since that I think I've said this, but they had that postseason like 2 years ago where they just went nuts. Like they shouldn't. There was no reason they should be winning the games they were. They should absolutely were believed in themselves when nobody else did. And so I just think there's just kind of an aura there and a belief in a way that allows them to just really go out and not feel like they're out of any game, which is an amazing mentality to have. So again, was an opportunity for them and they've taken it. Like, because a lot of people could have looked at that huge lead and been like, it's over, and St. Anselm isn't taking care of their business and Franklin Pierce is. So good on them, and it just means it's going to be really fun next 6 weeks or so.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're here for when it comes down to the end of the season. Yep. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it's time to talk the U18 tournament, where Nicole is, what we've seen so far, and what's coming ahead. Stay with us on the podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. Todd and Nicole here with you to talk about the U18 World Championship that's going on in Sydney, Nova Scotia. What's the other city that's in? Sydney?
Number 2.
Okay, thank you.
That's where we were to start. We moved to Sydney for...
Right, not...
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So we've seen the U.S. pretty much dominate 3 games that it's played. Jane Daly, a hat trick in all 3 games, the Ohio State commit. That's pretty impressive.
16-year-old
we've seen, yes, 16-year-old. We've seen Canada win 3 games, get challenged early in a couple of them, but end up with pretty comfortable margins. Where does that leave us as we're going into the quarterfinals starting on Thursday, then with the semi Saturday and the medal games on Sunday? What are you feeling about how things are looking there now?
2 things. The first is that we have seen that a team that gets beaten in group round by a squad can still come back and give that same team all kinds of trouble in the medal rounds. Czechia upsetting Canada two years ago, things like that. So like, it's not everything, these opening round results. I think teams, I always say this is the weirdest tournament because it both goes very fast and very slow. Like, it is only a week long, but it feels when you're in it. I mean, and there's, up to 6 games, and like, there's a lot that can happen and learn and grow and change over the course of a tournament for a team, which feels ridiculous to say about a week, but it is very true that you will have watched the team on day 1 of the team on the last day and have seen that growth. So I don't want to put too much on the opening round results. That being said, we all thought Czechia in their first period against Canada was like showing that they are here to stay and play, and then they ended up losing 9-2, and afterwards the Czechia coach was like, yeah, that gap is bigger than ever. So that was like really surprising, and it does feel like we're on a crash course for US and Canada again. US has allowed just 1 goal. It was NEWHA on the power play. They have not faced any adversity. They haven't had to come from behind. They've been in basic control of every game they've played, even when, sort of the coaching staff is like, oh, there were things we didn't like or whatever. I wasn't ahead with the period. Like, they're still scoring 4 goals in that period. It's like, okay. I mean, I get it from a coach's side, but like, they're fine. And then I would have said that about Canada as well, but yesterday Sweden scored first, and then I think at one point pulled it down to a 3-2 lead right after that, and then Canada pulled away. And I think that's the sort of stuff, like as I said, put a pin in it, we'll come back to it, is that part where you go down by a goal when you've been blowing out opponents. Like, how do you respond? How do you react? And so I think important part for Canada was not just reacting to the goals, but also like not getting pushed out of their system or not playing panicked or any of those sorts of things. Like, they actually got better when they were pressured. And so that sort of, I think, helped settle them into their game and sort of push out the noise and let them focus on doing what they know best. So I think, the question mark for the US is what will they do when they get pressured like that? And for them, it's most likely going to be in the semifinals, which it's rough to have that be the first time. And if you're going to need to make adjustments or have a gut check, there's not a lot of room for mistakes or errors there. You either win that game and play for a gold, or you lose the game and play for bronze or nothing. So That I think is the biggest concern, but the U.S. is probably as deep as I've seen them. They're kind of scoring at will on all their lines. Like you said, Jean Daly, it's just absolutely skating circles about everybody. And like, it's not like empty netters. They're not like cherry picked. Like, she's scoring some pretty goals. So yeah, 9 goals through 3 games is just absolute bonkers. Again, she's 16. Just kind of nuts. Yeah, so I think for it, the question is, can someone upset those two teams? And I mean, the closest team to do that is Sweden or Czechia, and so those are the teams that I'll be paying attention to through quarterfinals and semifinals, and then what happens with US and Canada when they're not sort of able to play and move the puck at will, which they have both pretty much been able to do.
All right. So the quarterfinal schedule Thursday is Sweden against Slovakia, Czechia versus Switzerland, U.S. against Hungary, and Canada against Finland. Again, then there's a day off Friday before we get to the semifinals with the championship game on Sunday. I mean, it feels like it's a U.S. and Canada. We're careening towards that again, like most years. Not to say it's a given, like we saw 2 years ago.
I mean, 2 of the last 3 years, U.S. or Canada didn't play in the final game. So, like, I do think that it's a possibility, and I don't want to downplay that, but both teams are just really strong and really deep and really fast. And I think what everybody has said, we asked some of the Swedish players and the Swedish coach, sort of what's the difference between playing in the SDHL and here. And they said the SDHL is more physical, but this is faster. So the U18s are even faster than the Swedish Pro League, which is just interesting, like just a good comparison to know. But the biggest thing that all the teams like have an issue with or struggle with is not having that time and space to make decisions. And so at the top level, they're going to adjust to that. At those top teams, the lower levels don't really know what to do there. They are still at a speed of game where they're stopping and thinking about everything. And so when there is no space for that, like they're kind of frozen. And so that's that's what makes it difficult. And that's really the biggest thing that happens. It's like you can't muster any offense and you can't hold on to the puck if there's constantly someone in your pocket. And if you're not sort of at that level, and if you and your team aren't meshed enough where you can just make a pass to know that somebody's going to be there, then you're constantly just turning the puck over. So that's really the biggest difference that we see sort of between the levels. And then so the 4 teams that lose the quarterfinals, the 2 with the lowest seeds, and the teams were seeded after the round, the group round. That's how they kind of figured out there's a 1 through 4 in each of Group A and Group B, and then we cross. Anyway, the 2 lowest seeds left will play in the relegation game. So last night's game, the very last game of the group round, was Hungary versus Switzerland, which was honestly one of the most fun games of the tournament for me to watch. Just because they were well matched. They're at a similar place, and just a lot of heart. And those teams were playing to not play in the relegation game. I mean, technically, one of them could upset. There could be things, but like in the end, one of them needed to have a win to be seated higher, to not be the 4th team in their group, and hopefully not play in the relegation game. And so playing with that heart and playing with that pride just really made that just a spectacular game. And their fans that are here are family, and so just the crowd is so involved. The hockey dads along the railing were A+ the whole time. It was a lot of fun to watch, and I felt really bad for Hungary, who are up for the first time in 14 years, that they ended up losing a very close game. So good for Switzerland. The pure joy they had on the ice was great for a regular group round game, but also it's just we mostly get the team that was promoted last year gets relegated this year, and Hungary will be looking that in the face again this year. So kind of a bummer, always one of the harder parts about it, because you do really want to pull for these teams. But I guess, and then the surprise has been Finland, who has done not a whole lot with their games, and honestly could be also on a course for the relegation game, which is kind of shocking, to be quite honest.
All right. Before we move on, I want to just get some thoughts on what's the atmosphere like there? What are you noticing? What are you feeling? What's it like being in that building for, I mean, there's a couple of days where it's 4 games. There's a couple of days where it's 2 games. I'm sure the 2 game days are lovely when you only have the 2, as opposed to back to back and missing out on games because you're in the mix zone and things like that. But just give us a feel for what it's been like.
This is probably the one that's been the most supported by like local folks, meaning that like the local team is selling out the arena when they're playing. We did see that a little in Sweden, but not so much in the group round games. But one of the weird things on a 4-game day is like we had Canada as the 3rd game of the day, and then Switzerland, Hungary as the 4th game, and the energy level inside the arena was slightly different. It fills up, it's very loud. All the Canada fans are there, and then it feels incredibly quiet after. But ticket sales wise, we've sold out every one of the Canada games, which the arena was like 1,250. I think there were still, quite a bit empty because of corporate sales and things like that. But so it's been a full and loud building. And then a lot of the country parents bring, the Swiss have cowbells, and the Slovakia parents have a drum and some horns, which you said you can hear very loud through the roundhouse.
You could very, very well on TV. Yes, you can.
And so it's fun. It is. There have been some school kids for some of the day games, which has been fun. So, and there's just well, this is the first time that I've been doing this. So, member 2 is part of Native First Nations land, and I am not going to attempt to announce the tribe. I apologize for not saying it, but I would rather not say it than screw it up. But there's been a very large presence, like the player of the game. We're getting hand-beaded flowers, which is the flower of, I think, Nova Scotia. It might be. We're on Cape Breton, which is a separate island, which is part of Nova Scotia, but it's also its own thing. That's where I keep getting confused. Doesn't matter. So they're getting that, and there's just a presence with First Nations, and so that's just been a very cool and important part of this. So that rink is on First Nations land, and I'm think it's really cool that we did that and made that a part of this this tournament this year. And so now we will move into Sydney proper for they have I don't remember the league, but they have a team here. Like they call themselves Hockey Town here. And we're in their rink, and I keep laughing because I keep hearing radio commercials about their team on their extended road trip. And it's like, I know why that's happening. But I know the gold medal game is sold out, and that rink has about 6,000 seats. So that should be amazing. And people in town know, like, they're like, oh, why are you here? Because people don't, this is a summer destination. People do not come here in the winter. Sure. So that's been fun. And talking to some of the Nova Scotians, I mean, they never could have imagined a tournament like this happening in their hometown when they were younger. Like the idea that young girls get to see this. And I think we feel that everywhere. But like in Canada, where hockey's so big, Nova Scotia is sort of so removed and so far to the east that we don't see a ton happening out here. It's like why when Women's World was supposed to be in Halifax and got canceled, that was a big deal because this is a growing area of girls hockey participation. And I've heard locals talking about like they didn't have girls teams when they were younger and things like that. So the town has been super supportive, and that's been fun, and people have just been really excited that we're here, which is nice.
Great. All right, we will get the full rundown of the final 3 rounds of the tournament on next week's show, and I'm sure we'll get maybe more of the feel of what the medal ceremonies are like from you after that then too. We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, we'll talk about what's coming ahead this week in NCAA women's hockey. Stay with us on the podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. Todd and Nicole with you. Let's wrap things up this week with a look at some games to watch this weekend and then into Tuesday. I say Tuesday because that's the Beanpot final day at TD Garden in Boston. The 3rd place game, Northeastern against BC. Championship game, Harvard and BU. That 3rd place game is important for Northeastern. I believe has lost 2 of their 3 games since break. You don't want that to extend, especially when they're in a pretty good position in the NPI. You don't want that to slip. Don't want to, have a game here or there hurt you. Maybe take a sure thing in the NCAA tournament at the end to a question going in the last couple of weeks. But the final should be pretty good. And I hope the crowd is as good or better as it was last year at TD Garden. I think it was 13,000 some last year. A really good showing, and let's hope that repeats itself.
Yeah, I agree. I hope that even if it isn't like even if your team didn't make the final, that people were expecting or hoping to be able to be there, that like go for both games and stay and really support and show out for women's hockey, college hockey in Boston.
Yeah, absolutely. ECAC, there's number 13 Yale hosting number 12 Colgate on Friday and number 10 Cornell on Saturday. Kind of in that next range of ECAC teams looking to make a jump. Obviously, a lot of work to be done by all three of those teams really to make the second half a little bit better than the first half was in terms of being up and down. And I'm sure they'd like to get to a more consistent set of results in a positive way, but that doesn't necessarily seem to be the way things are going in this mushy middle in ECAC. I guess upper middle of the standings, where it's really tough to figure out who's got a leg up on anyone else there.
Yeah, and they're all on the border of the NPI and the ability to make the tournament, right? Like, it's not just about conference standings, but every one of those teams is probably on the outside looking in at the NCAA tournament at this point. So, Colgate has done that thing again where they're winning important games, and it's hard to believe them right now. I don't know. I want to see them, be pulling out those wins consistently, but Alyssa Biederman's been having a great season and continues to sort of be pulling that team, and hopefully they put a run of them together, because it feels like a little like UMD, like they're playing well in the good games and then maybe not bring in their full arsenal when it's an unranked opponent, and then those games are hurting them.
Yeah. Number 2, Ohio State, back on the road this week at number 14, Minnesota State. I would, I remember Minnesota State being close to a win last season at home against Ohio State. I think, was it an overtime game?
I think so, yeah.
Something like that. They had a chance to win in overtime, but Ohio State came down and won. That's what I have stuck in my head anyway. So we know that Minnesota State has the potential to do this. I just am wondering how much last week's, the first game against Minnesota, was a shock to the system. But then again, they came back and were right in that game the second day against Minnesota, had the lead, but did lose the lead, lost the game. They need some results. It's going to be it's not going to be any easier this week against Ohio State than it was against Minnesota, though.
No, but I'm sorry, talking about this made me realize we should talk about how Joy Dunn played defense last week and was the WCHA Defender of the Week. I believe that's because of injury. Ohio State has been down some numbers all season with different injuries, and since I'm here, I did not get the time to go look at different line sheets and do some of that detective work. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens there. Again, I mean, obviously she's a threat from everywhere on the ice, and also like they're not missing, like there's plenty of other people that could score goals up front. So but that is an interesting turn event, and it would be kind of funny to me that if we were seeing between the Layla transition and now Joy, just that it's happening in the same year, obviously for some different reasons. But I don't know if that was a one-off experiment or by necessity or a more permanent transition, but something to look out for if you watch those games.
Yes. St. Cloud State is playing at number 8, Minnesota Duluth. I'm curious to see which of both of these teams we get.
Agreed.
St. Cloud State can be right there with teams. They can also look like they're really far away from teams. And I can say the same about Duluth sometimes. They take care of games that they should, and they make some games a lot more difficult than they should be. So there's a little bit to watch on both sides of this one.
Yeah, and I still think that Minnesota Duluth is scoring fewer goals than I think maybe they should, based on who's in their lineup, and facing St. Cloud State with a strong defense and consistently good goaltending, it's not going to get any easier. And I think that's a thing that maybe I didn't talk about before with UMD, but I do think that if they're going to be a team that wants to do more and go further and possibly play for a title this year, they've got to find a way to get the puck in the net more often. And it can't just be Caitlin Kramer. But there are talented goal scorers on that roster, and they've just got to be putting up more than, I mean, what was it, the 2 goals last weekend? Like, that's just, it's not going to cut it.
Princeton puts that 11-game winning streak on the line against Harvard on Friday, Dartmouth on Saturday. Both of those home games at Hobie Baker Rink for Princeton. Let's see how far this goes, right? I would think, that they would be favored to win both those games. You do never know how one night's gonna go, but yeah, they can get to 13 wins in a row. You're starting to look at, man, that's a third of, or more than a third of an ECAC team season. So that's impressive.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Harvard is another team where I'm never sure. Like, obviously they've won some big games and shown how they can play, but also they played on Tuesday and they're going to play again on Tuesday. And now they're playing in the middle of that, and that's just a lot. And
Yep.
They've been home from overseas for 10 days and just all of it. So that will also be interesting to look at as well. I think that could be a game that is either going to be super close or I think going to be a blowout. I don't feel like there's any in between.
I now the more I think of it, Ivy teams play, is it only 30 games? So they're already a third of a winning streak, a third of their season. So
no, it's truly spectacular.
When you put it in those that perspective, that's pretty impressive. Yeah. Okay, you can see all the schedules of all the games on USCHO.com. What you want to mention some more about the U18 tournament and where you can find those games to watch as they're coming up this weekend?
Yeah, USA games have been on NHL Network because it's TSN in Canada that broadcasts it. But in putting up the links for Victory Press for tomorrow, I saw that all of these games are listed on ESPN Plus for this week. So starting with tomorrow's US-Hungary quarterfinal and the Canada-Finland quarterfinal. I believe this show is local to me time, so 5:00 here. Time zones, man. But
which
anyway,
is Atlantic, which is an hour ahead of Eastern, right?
Yes, that's why I paused. I was like, I don't even know, because what time am I supposed to be at the rink tomorrow? Nobody knows. It is scheduled at 5:00 here, so 4:00 Eastern, 3:00 Central, etc. And then the Canada game to follow right after. Those are both listed on ESPN Plus, as are the games on Saturday and Sunday. So if you do not have NHL Network, like I do not, that should be a much easier and less expensive way to watch those games. So that's on ESPN Plus. As I said, I've looked up like the schedule and it's upcoming and filtered it for hockey, and those are all showing. So good luck with that. I hope that's true and that people are able to watch it. IHF also has something you can subscribe to. I am writing about every one of the games on Victory Press and both tweeting and using Blue Sky to share stuff from within the rink, and then also putting photos and things on Instagram. My Instagram is at NicoleHaase14. Blue Sky and Twitter are just at NicoleHaase. So follow me there. IHF does not allow video from inside, so I'm not sharing video. It's all photos. My apologies.
Well, that's why you got to watch the games on ESPN Plus or NHL Network, or follow along on your Twitter. Right. All right. Well, hope you enjoy the rest of your trip.
Thank you.
Safe travels back, and enjoy the rest of the games. Sounds like it's fun stuff, and it's gonna get really interesting towards the last few days. Yeah. All right. For Nicole, I'm Todd. Thanks for listening to the podcast.